Well, it's Tuesday Wrestling, and we all know what that means. Once again, we get to review NWA Powerrr, AEW Dark, and of course, NXT. But we're also going to do a small discussion on regarding the future of the CWA Championship belt that recently we saw Mayu Iwatani relinquish after defeating Alpha Female. We also going to do some news updates to tell what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling. So, let's get ready for another episode of the Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, let's begin with NWA Powerrr. It opened up with women's tag team action. We have team number one, Camille, teaming up with one of the competitors for the three-way match at Hard Times, Kylan King, to take on the former NWA Women's Tag Team Champions, the Hex. So I have to say this was a much interesting opener, and I have to say a really good one for me, in my opinion, because these women have one goals in mind. Camille, as you guys know, wants to remain as a one-time champ. Camille wants to be Kylan King wants to be the one to dethrone Camille, to be the first one to do it. And then, of course, we cannot forget the Hex. As you know, they are trying to regain momentum after losing the tag team titles to a pretty envy and pretty empower. I think that's what they call themselves. But I have to say it was some good match. But the obvious question is, with Camille and Kylan King, can they coexist? Well, they really coexisted very well. Not to mention because they were trained by the same person, Bully Ray, and I think that sets it all. But it was Camille who ended the match by applying the spear onto Marty Bell, and boom, it win. And then after that, as you know, we're here since this is the go home show. We had the hard times and see what happens after that. Now we do get an interview with Ricky Morton by May Valentine. He talked about how he wants his own son, Kerry, to build his own legacy, not to say, oh, he's Ricky Morton. No, Kerry must be Ricky Morton. And I think that's one of the good concepts that shows that he wants to do what's best interest for his son. Like saying, son, be Kerry Morton. Don't be me. And I think that tells us all for a father that wants to make sure his son makes his own legacy. Now, more with May Valentine doing an interview. She interviews the number one competitor that will be facing Zion at Hard Times for the national championship. Now, Dak Draper, he knows he's facing a guy who has someone on his corner that will ensure that he will remain as champion. And I think Dak Draper shows, okay, that's one advantage that makes Zion to remain as champion is his dad. And I think that sets it all that that he knows what's at stake, but he has to do what he has to do best for himself in order to win that belt. Now, our next match, we have Father versus Odison. We know that there's been Aldis has been on a world tear, but he finished him off with a what's it, the Guardian pounds onto him, and boom, it ended real there, giving him the win. Our next interview again, it's with May Valentine. Now, in Hard Times, we're gonna have a mass versus mass scenario. We have the question mark, who we actually know is Rodney Mack, takes on question mark 2, who Aaron Stevens believed that he is a fraud. But however, we're gonna see what happens. But he also has still his issues towards Kratos, one way or the other. So that's something that he's been discussing. Now, our next match, we have Maddie Rinkowski, or just simply Maddie, take on Tail Valkyrie. I have to say this match was pretty good. I have to say this is a very good match for Maddie to take on Taya Valkyrie because I've seen her many times. But I have to say, it was not enough for Maddie to take down Taya until she pulled her to the road to Valhalla, and boom, 1, 2, 3, she's out. Now, our next interview by May Valentine, she uh, ran into someone we haven't seen for quite some time, Captain Yuma, who now goes by Dr. Captain Yuma, who gave a little update about Zion. Now, there was rumors and speculations that Zion was hurt, but Yuma actually made it clear that he will compete at Hard Times. Now, we do get another interview by May Valentine, and this one is with Hawks Ari. Now, Hawks Ari is the current number one contenders for the NWA World Tag Team titles. Now, as you know, Hard Times, they're heading to New Orleans, which is the hometown of Hawks Ari, and I think this is going to be one of the home field advantage for them to win, and I think that's what they're counting on. Since this is their place, that's how it's going to be. Now, our main event, we have an interesting six-man tag team match. Team number one, the ambassador of professional wrestling, Doug Williams, Kratos, and Pope taking on Tom Latimer, Tyrus, and Trevor Murdoch. Now, very interesting dynamic between Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch. The match was pretty good, but however, things did not go exactly it should have been and ended in no contest thanks to the interference of Aaron Stevens, who attacks Kratos and all this and that. And then, of course, the Cardona show up, who are trying to ensure they take out Tyrus and Trevor Murdoch to ensure that Matt Cardona walks away as the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, but it did not work in his favor. So we'll see what happens at Hard Times this weekend. So I'm looking forward to that. But right now, let's move on to our next review, which is AEW Dark. Okay, AEW Dark. This one, I have to say, these are pre-tapes all the way to the Jacksonville era where they were at Daly's Place. Opening match, we have Zach Clayton versus Blake Lee. Now, I don't need to tell you that this match, how it ends, since we know that Zach Clayton is signed. He finished off Blake Lee with, of course, the Fisherman Buster. And I thought it was an interesting one, but we don't know. I don't know how long he's going to be doing Darks, but sooner or later he will be heading to Dynamite in a way. Next match, we have Kayla Rossi taking on Ashley DeWalls. Very strong match for Kayla. You know, we still are trying to get used to her ever since we know back then when she was valid for Joey Janela, but now she's stepping up into her own game. But she did finish Ashley with, I don't know what kind of suplex is it, but it was insane, and she picked up the win in that fashion with 1, 2, 3. It's over. Now our next match is a tag team action. We got the Gun Club posing as FTR. As you know, they've been pissing off the Gun Club for quite some time, trying to prove that these guys had their chances, and it's time for guys like them. And of course, you have Morrissey by their side, acting like their manager. But there was a moment where, of course, one of their opponents, BK Klein and Jarrell Diaz. Now, I think there was Klein who thought he had the momentum, but the Gun Club tricked them, and then they pulled off an inside cradle to pick up the win. Now, our next match, I have to say this was a good one. This rivalry between these two dates back to the Daily Place Jacksonville timing, and that is, of course, Peter Avalon versus Brandon Cutler. I thought this match was great. I think it was really good. Like, I don't know if this is more of the conclusion, because if you guys know this, Peter Avalon, he's no longer working with AEW, but he will be booked by them on certain matches like Dark and Elevation, and I think that sets it off. But it was, of course, to my surprise, there was a moment where Leva Bates came out to stop Peter Avalon from using the chair, but Avalon rolled up Cutler to pick up his win against Cutler, and I think this is. But there are those that believe that maybe this match is far, far from over. Next match, we have the Factory consistent of QT Marshall and Cole Carter taking on the Blondes. I thought this match would have been in favor of the Blondes because, as you know, they're trying to reinvent themselves ever since losing the name the Varsity, and Julia Hart siding with the House of Black. But once again, QT found a way to ensure he wins, try to prove he's the best wrestler by using Griff Garrison's tights in order to win the match. Next up, we have Anna Jay versus Cio Nieves. I don't need to tell you how that wins and ended with the Queen Slayer one way or the other. Next match, we have Kip Sabian versus Marcus Cross. Ugh, excuse me. Really interesting match. Kip Sabian continues to improve even better and better. Don't know where it's going to lead till we see him, what angle he's going to play. There are those that believe that maybe he and Penelope before should be gunning for Sammy and Mello, but we don't know yet. But he did pick up a very good win. I don't know what move he put out, but it seems like it was a Falcon Arrow. I'm not sure, but they did not say it. But that's what it seems like to me, the way he finished him off. Next match, we have Diamante versus Athena. This is one of those hard-hitting matches. You probably would have guessed it right away that Athena won. But however, we have noticed on recently during Dark Elevation that she has this really bad attitude. There's the signs that she could be turning heel, and I think that's something we need to pay attention until the next time. So we'll find out soon enough what happens. Our next match, we have Powerhouse Hobbs versus Rico Gonzalez. You can guess this match ended with Powerhouse Hobbs. Once again, he tried to spine buster. 1, 2, 3, it's over. Next up, we have the Dark Order, consistent of Evil Uno, John Silver, and Alex Reynolds, along with the boss, -1, taking on Fulton, Ativalu, hopefully, and Troy Hollywood. As you know, whatever combination I like with Dark Order has always been effective. But of course, in this one, we have the jackknife. That was always been the effective move for Alex Reynolds to pick up the win, and that's exactly what happened. Next up, we got Eddie Kingston and Ortiz taking on Caleb Connolly and R.A. Fox. That match ended with the Fisherman Bomb by Ortiz to Connolly, but however, once again, Eddie Kingston up to his usual ways, trying to take out his opponent, and that's how it goes. Our next match, this was a very interesting one. We have Mei Shiruga and Emi Sakura taking on Hikaru Shida and Toni Storm. I have to say, I love this match completely for many reasons. Now, if you guys know the history with Hikaru Shida and Hikaru Shida with Emi Sakura and Mei Shiruga, they both came from the same instructor, Emi Sakura. Toni Storm, as you know, she has run into the same locations with Hikaru Shida when she was in Japan, and I think that says it all. But one thing is, do not count out Mei Shiruga. But it was the katana by Hikaru Shida that sealed the deal, took out Mei Shiruga. 1, 2, 3, it is over. Next up, we got the Wingmen, Ryan Meneth and Cesar Bononi taking on the Blackpool Combat Club, Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta. I have to say, this tag team group is far more effective. And once again, we had the spinning rope, but it was the sharpshooter by Castagnoli that finished off Meneth and forced him to tap out. I have to say, pretty good matches on this one. I think I will say which ones I did like. The last two and the whole thing with Brandon Cutler and Peter Avalon. I think those are pretty good ones. I think I enjoyed those the most. So I think that's pretty much it. So I believe it's time for NXT. Okay, NXT. So let's get cracking. It opened up with Joe Gazing being accompanied by the Schism, Fowler, and Reed, along with their newest member, Ava Rain, to take on Cameron Grimes. As you know, Grimes and the Schism has been at war with each other But Grimes continues to say that, Ava was manipulated, brainwashed by the schism, but that did not happen. Now, you probably said that this would have been Grimes' moment where he would, how to say, compete the odds. No, because, however, Ava Raine got her little payback against Cameron Grimes for declaring that she was brainwashed by the schism. And this allowed for Joe Gacy to apply the finisher, ending their feud once and for all. Now, we do get our little backstage segment where we have Nathan Frazier, who's going to be out for a while. Looks like he got hurt during that ladder match at Halloween Havoc. Axum, who's been his closest friend, tried to give him some encouragement, and once again, the JD McDonough decides to go out and try to make things a little more complicated for everybody, so that later on it was booked between a matches between Axiom and JD McDonough. Now, as you know, recently, during Halloween Havoc, Carmelo Hayes, as you know, we all thought maybe he'd be pissed off that he lost the title. However, he seems like he got some thought into this. He claimed, even though he doesn't have the title, but he did one valid point, that Wesley never pinned him. So that kind of sets the whole point. So in 2 weeks' time, there will be a match, but there'll be like a contract signing or something next week. As for Wesley, later on that he did interview, he had to agree with Carmelo Hayes. So basically, that's how it is. But Carmelo Trick Williams is 100% convinced that sooner or later Wesley will have the shortest reign ever. So we'll see what happens then. Now, once again, Scripps, this unknown guy, we don't know who he is. He's been putting up something. We don't know who he is or what's the angle, but we'll find out soon enough as well with that. Our next match, we have Sol Ruca versus Elektra Lopez. Now, keep in mind, about 2 weeks ago, we saw Elektra Lopez reappear and attack Sol Ruca and Indy Hartwell. It appears that things are now becoming heated, but Sol Ruca looks like she wanted a little payback for what Elektra Lopez is. But the obvious question is, now that she's no longer with Legado, how dangerous is she on her own? Tony D'Angelo even said that he does believe her, that she is far more dangerous than we realize. And that's exactly what she did until she put a somewhat of a power bomb onto Sol Ruca in order to win. But once the post-match was over, come about, we saw Indy Hartwell, who still has her issues towards her. But as you know, Indy Hartwell, who's not going to take that kind of crap from Elektra Lopez, this feud is over. But Roxanne tried to give her comfort, but Indy Hartwell was not going to listen to it because she felt that comfort has held her back for far too long. Now, we do get a little segment with the Toxic Attraction. As you know, Gigi Dolan is out after Alba Fire initially put it through the table. But Jay-Z Jane decided, I'm not going to show up at the arena. But little did she know, she was ambushed by Alba Fire, sending a direct message to Mandy Rose that she will take that title off of her one way or another. But should Mandy Rose be worried? I would say yes, because now that she's more dangerous than ever, there's no escaping her. Now, our next match, we have Charlie Dempsey and Andre Chase. Now, this is a revenge situation for Charlie Dempsey when he lost humiliatingly to Andre Chase. Now, things would have gone Andre Chase's way, but however, submission moves continue to be the most effective weapon to him. But Duke Hudson was conflicted whether to throw the towel or not. But however, he did not want to see Andre Chase hurt, so he had no other choice. Even Dale Hill thought the same thing too, because we know Charlie Dempsey, how dangerous he can be. So he threw in the towel, giving Dempsey the win. Now, as you know, Kiana James has been on a rampage. She decided she's going to buy the family bar that belongs to Fallon Henley. But however, Henley has no reason to sell that because it holds sentimental value. But Kiana James continues to raise the stakes. Now, our next match, we have Hank Walker versus Shannon Stacks Lorenzo. I have to say, this was a very interesting match. Now, we know Hank Walker has been really making a name for himself since he transitioned from security to wrestler. Stacks, who's been mostly trying to improve to bring, joyful thoughts to his boss, Tony D. And you would have thought this match would have ended in the Hawk and Walker, but no. But Stacks eye gouged Walker, but he also put a famous type maneuver onto him to pick up the win and giving Tony D'Angelo, the stamp of approval that he won the match. Sorry about that. Our next our next little taco segment, we have the Grayson Waller effect. Now, keep in mind, we have a match for the NXT title, Braun Breaker versus Von Wagner. Now, the X factor is this: Braun Breaker hasn't faced guys like Von Wagner before, but Wagner is confident enough to believe that he will walk out as the NXT champion. But Braun Breaker, we know he has beaten the odds and this and that. But for once, I like to say Braun Breaker finally shut the hell up Robert Stone, who never shuts up every single time. So I can't wait to see that. Now, our match, we have JD McDonough versus Axiom. This match was insane. Now, once again, McDonough decided to bend the knee of Axiom, and it was completely over. It ended by ref's decision. But JD McDonough, with this little match, he is sending a direct message to the entire locker room saying that you've been warned. Now, our next match we have is a 5-minute challenge between Damon Kemp and Brodus Creed. Now, keep in mind, the Creed brothers have been dealing with Damon Kemp for what he's put them through. But this was not a match that I feel it was more revenge. Brodus decided to use a chair, disqualifying himself from the match, but giving Damon Kemp a beatdown of a lifetime to remember him by. And I thought it was a very interesting moment, but I think Damon Kemp had no clue this was going to happen. And of course, Julius and Ivy now, they had no interest of stopping him. Like, what the hell? Just let him do it. So I thought it was a great moment for that. But the real question is, how would Damon Kemp be the following week? Well, we'll see what happens. Now, our main event is the NXT Women's Tag Team titles. I thought it was a good match. Lions and Zoe Starks were like the underdogs in this match versus the team that have always been proven that they are legit. And I thought it was a good one. There was a moment where, of course, there was Starks and Lions could have botched it, but no, it ended with, of course, Zoe Starks being pinned. And of course, when we thought that they received respect, Zoe Starks attacked Nikita Lyons. So this is more of the beginning now where we see Starks turning heel. So that sets the whole thing. So we'll see what happens the following week. I can't wait to see what Lyons has to say about this betrayal, but we'll find out. So I think that's pretty much it. So let's move on to our next thing, DWZ discussions about the CWA Championship.
Get the guns, the drugs from my generation. I'll take the fall, the saints, and across the nation. And it's a sin, the cost, the fake, the fraud, the messing with me. Come on, come on, come on, let's get it on. Move to the music, play like fucking music. Move it to the music, yeah. Move to my music, play like fucking music. Live through my music, yeah. Now get the guns, the drums from my generation. I'll take the fall, the same.
Okay, DW discussions. Let's talk about the CWA Championship that Stardom, as you know, is that happened on Hiroshima Goddess Festival on November 3rd. Mayu Iwatani put that title on the line for the third time in her career, facing off against Alpha Female, who's been known as the second woman to win the World of Stardom Championship. And this was a very interesting thing that happened during post match. Mayu Iwatani surprised everyone that she says she's going to relinquish the CWA title to focus more on the IWGP Women's Championship. Now we know that there are signs that say that she could win that match, but the obvious question now is what is the future of the CWA Championship? Now, let's talk about what people say. Now, those speculate that maybe there's going to be a tournament for this particular belt. That would be the obvious thing that could happen. But Stardom hasn't, how do I say, announced for anything. The last time this belt was relinquished was early January when Sudi became the red belt champion and announced that she was relinquishing the belt. Mina Shirakawa and Tekla made the decision that they wanted to compete for that belt. There was a match to determine who was going to win it, and Tekla won. And then Tekla lost that belt to Mayu Iwatani. And I think that's pretty much what we do know, but we don't know anything yet. So that's one thing that many people are thinking, okay, the opponent. Now, here's another opinion that people say. And to me, I feel like this is the one opinion that it should happen. This belt should be defunct. Not because I say so. I feel because if you guys know this or not. Now, those who know what the CWA belt is about, let me explain. This belt is defended internationally, no matter where you go. Now, Mayu Iwatani hasn't been able to defend the belt because there was no foreigners involved. That was the thing. Now, the first time she put this belt on the line, she faced Fukigen Def, who she's claimed that she is an alien, and that kind of put her into place, saying that she's not originally from Earth. I don't know what that was about, but her second opponent was Kylan King, which was a baller of a match, and then of course Alpha Female. So we haven't seen any more foreign wrestlers that make their way to Stardom, and the CWA belt functions similarly to the IWGP Women's Championship that soon will be active once we are crowned the first champion. So I feel like the IWGP Women's Championship could overshadow the concept of the CWA belt. So if I was Stardom, I would say just defunct the belt. I feel like what's the use now? You're gonna have this belt more than anything. Now, recently, as you know, I've been following up on other people's podcast over the Hiroshima Goddess Festival, what they thought. There was one that kind of caught my attention, regardless of what happened to Mina Shirakawa. Now, if you guys remember clearly, I mentioned earlier that Mina Shirakawa wanted to compete for that belt. You ask yourselves, why would she compete for that belt? Many reasons why. Mina Shirakawa knows how to speak English. She has traveled outside of Japan before, like Spain and Mexico, one of those areas. And I think that's why it suits her. Now, this podcast, I don't know who they are, but they do follow a lot of the Stardom uh, events and all this and that. They even mentioned, because of what happened to Mina Shirakawa, they believe once she comes back, there's very, how to say, not doubt, but more like they believe that maybe Mina Shirakawa will get her hands on the CWA belt immediately once she gets back. But like I said, I don't know. Like, we haven't heard anything. There are many people who are saying that she should be. I mean, right now, because of Mina Shirakawa now improved better as a wrestler, they believe she should be getting that belt. We don't know for sure. We don't know what is Stardom's plans for that belt. Will it be remaining vacant until something happens, or should they defunct it? We don't know. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing Mina Shirakawa going for that belt, but like I said again, we don't know. we don't know what's the future for that belt. But like I said, I would rather see that belt defunct because it could the IWGP Women's Championship could overshadow it. And I think that's, to me, the right course of action. But we just gotta wait and see what Stardom has in mind. And nothing has come into mind yet. But there was a moment I did see where Tekla put eye emojis on Twitter when she kept close tabs. Would this mean that Tekla would be also challenging for this belt? Would ask for this belt? We don't know. But like I said, Stardom needs to think right now what's the future for that belt. But again, nothing, nada, niet, what the future is for that belt. So I will keep tabs on that if something changes. So right now, let's end it here and move on with news updates. Okay, welcome to our news updates. Now, interesting developments in pro wrestling happening. I mentioned on the previous news updates, Zac Efron, the actor, has now been cast as the role of Kevin Von Erich, the surviving Von Erich. But interesting developments has been revealed. MJF will be involved in this film in the Iron Claw film, the Von Erich's biopic. Now, some of you question which Von Erich he will portray. I was a bit of surprise with this one. And he's going to be portraying Lance Von Erich. Now, some of you, if you guys know the history of the Von Erichs, who the hell is Von Erich? Lance, excuse me. Okay, who the hell is Lance Von Erich? Now, from what we know from history, if you guys saw Dark Side of the Ring, Lance Von Erich is a fictional character. He's no relations to the Von Erichs. And from what history tells us, he was the worst decision that Fritz has ever made, as you know, because of the situation with Fritz's sons dying one by one, kind of changes the whole thing. Now, if you guys notice, MJF hasn't been seen quite some time since he got put through a table. According to what they're saying, he was written off so they can focus on this film. We don't know how far along this film is. I mean, I don't know MJF if he was okay with the idea of playing Lance Von Erich, but I'm kind of curious how this one is going to be portrayed. So I'm looking forward once this movie's out in theaters. Now, our next update, this was a very interesting development. Nick Aldis seems like he wants out of the NWA. He sent in his 2 weeks notice saying that he wants to be leaving, wants his release from the company. They suspended them for this. Now, why is this happening? Well, the reasons behind this is in recent times, according to what sources are saying, it seems like there has been no good terms of creative process between both Aldis and Corgan. So they have like creative differences in mind. Many fans, as you know, has been asking, when will we see another in Powerrr, which is a show, a all-female pay-per-view that Mickie James, Nick Aldis' wife, produced, and it appears like Billy Corgan right now is not jumping into that right now. That's not what his thought process. I don't know. He has a different way of thinking, but we just don't know. And I think felt Nick Aldis that he was disrespecting his wife, that she would do anything for the company. But now it seems there's that. Now, socials also reveal because of this, there's been talk that WWE are kind of seems like they're interested in getting Nick Aldis. Now, Nick Aldis was one of those guys that WWE in the past rejected, but do we think right now is the perfect timing? We don't know. We don't know what's going to be. Some people say he could go with AEW. We don't know either, or back with Impact. That is the obvious we don't know yet until that day. So I will continue to follow more on this, but we'll see what happens. Now, Prestige Wrestling announced for one of their upcoming events, the Things We Carry. There's going to be first time debut. We have Casey Navarro will be making his debut for this particular pay per view. He takes on the self proclaimed ace of Prestige Wrestling, Alan Angels. So I can't wait to see how that's going to go. Now, speaking back to our previous updates, I mentioned that uh, El Desperado from New Japan Pro Wrestling and member of Suzuki-gun says that he would like to be in a tag match with Starlight Kid to take on Jun Kasai and Rina Yamashita. But he said this is not going to be an ordinary match. He revealed that this match that he wants is a death match. Now, let's be honest with this. We know that Despy has been in these type of matches. Jun Kasai is an expert in these matches, and so is Rina. But Kid, I don't think she's ever been in these type of matches before. Recently, no, she wasn't. She could have been in a hardcore match with Momo Watanabe to take on Julia and Rina Yamashita, but we don't know yet. I don't know if Kid will effectively accept it. We don't know. But the obvious thing is, will this match take place in Stardom ring? No. I would say if this match was going to happen, I would say it would happen on the Takataichi Despy Mania event that takes place every 3 months. That to me, I feel like that's the right course of action that could happen. But of course, I'm sure that Despy has to negotiate permission to Stardom to allow Starlight Kid to be involved. So if that's the case, I would say that's the right course of action, not to put this on a ring, a New Japan ring or anything. But if that's the case, then I'd say, look, we'll just see what happens then. DEFY Wrestling has announced for their final match they're going to book for their upcoming event, Fightwave, that will take place on the 26th of November. We're going to have El Fantasma making his return to take on Cody Chun. That's going to be one hell of a match to watch. Now, Wrestling Observer has reported the Young Bucks filed a trademark, the Wayward Sons. Now, we don't know what's the situation. Now, we have seen recently on AEW Dark where AEW were like the Elite's been deleted, and we don't know if the Bucks might no longer come back as the Young Bucks, maybe the Wayward Sons. We don't know. We are waiting for what's going to happen. We do know that there's talk about the return, so we'll see that when that day happens. Until then, we'll just wait. Now, speaking of previous updates that I posted up again, as you know, I mentioned that Masa Kitamiya from Pro Wrestling Noah said on an interview that he would like to have a match against Eddie Kingston. Naomichi Marufuji tweeted Kingston about this, and Kingston's reply said, "Let's do it. I'm willing to fight." And so is Kitamiya. So I'm like saying, "Ooh, this is gonna be good." But obvious question is, where can this match take place? Now, some of you could say it could have happened in AEW ring. I would say that would be the most clear position. But last time Kingston faced a wrestler from Noah, it was Naomichi Marufuji at House of Glory. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case where it could happen there again. So we'll just wait and see when that day comes, but I will stick close to this story. Now, for all of you who know, you may have some good news about Cain Velasquez, MMA fighter, and former MMA fighter, now current wrestler. He has been released on bail with a $1 million bond. Bail bond. He's been in prison for 8 months because of the situation where he got into a scuffle with a guy who has been harassing a member of his family, a 8-year-old boy. So practically that's what happened. So we'll see what happens afterwards, but it's great to hear that he's out, and we'll see what takes place. Now, for all New Japan Pro Wrestling fans, it was announced that Jeff Cobb will be missing out on several events for the New Japan event due to personal reasons. We don't know what's going to happen then, but we're sure that there'll be some changes on the card. That is something to expect by New Japan, but we'll see what from then on. I think that's pretty much it what we have, so let's just call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode coming up, since it's going to be Wednesday. We know AEW Dynamite is something that'll be on the table. I haven't decided what I'm going to put before that. So I'll keep everybody surprised on that. But for now, we'll just end it right here for that. So I'll see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.